go kill yourself. I am so close to offing myself. I hear these grave phrases thoughtlessly tossed around every day. Our words can have a powerful impact on others, and yet we neglect our responsibility to be intentional in what we say. Society as a whole has made meaningful steps towards destigmatizing mental illness and shining a light on mental health. However, the conversation has moved past addressing mental illness and towards over-normalizing it. Mental illness has long been misunderstood, which has led to judgment and discrimination against those who suffer from it. This stigma partially stems from the belief that mental illness is a personal weakness or a character flaw. As a result, the individuals that suffer from it may feel shame, self-blame, or reluctance when seeking help or treatment. Research has shown that mental illness is not a personal failing, but rather a medical condition that can be caused by a variety of factors, including genetics, life experiences, and your environment. Mental illness has also been stigmatized through the portrayal of those with mental illnesses as violent or dangerous in the media, leading to fear and mistrust of those with mental illness. It has been proven, though, that people with mental illness are no more likely to be violent than those without it. In fact, those with mental illness are more likely to be the victims of violence than the perpetrators. In an effort to reduce this stigma, many steps have been taken to normalize mental illness systematically, socially, and personally. Systemically, change has come from advocating for policies and laws that increase access to resources and dismantle policies that disproportionately affect those with mental illness. Providing support and resources for those with mental illness socially, which can include access to mental health care, support groups, and other resources, can help individuals manage their mental health interpersonally. Personally, creating a safe and supportive space for people to talk about their mental health to help reduce stigma and shame that plagues those who struggle with it. Educational campaigns, media coverage, and the sharing of personal experiences can be used to increase awareness and understanding for everyone, whether they struggle with mental illness or not. However, there are also potential negative impacts of the personalization of mental illness on social media in these efforts to promote mental health. One concern is the risk of oversharing, which can lead to feelings of vulnerability and exposure. For individuals who are already struggling with mental health issues, the pressure to share personal stories and experiences on social media can be overwhelming and may exacerbate feelings of distress. Furthermore, consumers of this content may try to approach their mental health in the same way they're seeing online. Though this is helpful in some cases, everyone's experience with mental health is different, so what works for one person may not work for everyone. As a result, people may feel that they will never be able to move forward. Another potential negative impact is the risk of creating a distorted or idealized portrayal of mental illness. While sharing stories is a powerful way to raise awareness, mental illness is a complex and varied experience that cannot be explained with a single story. Furthermore, people struggling with mental illness may turn to social media and not find anyone who shares their experience, which steers them away from seeking help. Over 70% of mentally ill people do not receive treatment from healthcare staff. Those who do seek help may have trouble with their identity and recovery because they've been socialized to internalize attitudes and behaviors such as spiraling negative thoughts as their character. By normalizing mental illness, there's a risk of labeling and treating normal experiences like grief as mental health conditions like depression. Consequently, individuals may undergo unnecessary medical intervention. As such, taking a nuanced and holistic approach through an ongoing dialogue inclusive of anyone with mental illness is imperative. More accurate representations of mental illness in mainstream media can combat this new barrier created by social media. Accurate portrayals of mental illness can provide a more realistic understanding of what it is like to live with mental illness and humanize those who are struggling with it. People need to see mental illness as it exists in the real world, even if it's not pretty. Depression isn't just feeling sad and sleeping all the time. It can be not showering, brushing your teeth, or combing your hair for weeks. Additionally, the media must recognize and depict the role of social and cultural context in shaping mental health. This can include the impact of discrimination, poverty, and other social injustices on mental health. Lack of access to resources due to these determinants can dramatically change one's experience. For example, medication can be very helpful for some people living with mental illness, but some may have trouble obtaining a prescription due to lack of health care. Furthermore, in the media, mental illness is often portrayed as being highly dramatic and sensationalized, with individuals who are living with mental illness being portrayed as unstable and dangerous. This can lead to the idea that those with mental illness are somehow fundamentally different than those who do not suffer from it, which can further stigmatize and marginalize those who are living with these conditions. Mental illness is often portrayed as being caused by a single identifiable event, such as a traumatic event. However, in reality, the causes of mental illness are often much more complex and multifaceted. Portrayals of mental illness should avoid oversimplification and one-dimensional narratives and instead provide a nuanced understanding of what it is like to live with mental illness. Showing ugly truths would do more good by showing people that they're not alone than depicting a watered-down version through rose-colored glasses. It would also encourage people to ask for help and share with their loved ones what they're going through. The media often portrays people with mental illness as helpless, dependent on others, and unable to recover. In reality, many people living with mental illness are able to manage their symptoms and live fulfilling lives with the help of therapy, medication, and support from loved ones. In encouraging such information about mental health, mental illness has unintentionally become trivialized. The lighthearted uses of phrases like, "I want to kill myself," or "kill yourself," especially among teens, referred to as dark humor, is a common occurrence in today's society. While these phrases may be intended as a joke, their use can have detrimental impacts on those who hear them, particularly for those who struggle with suicidal thoughts or have a history of mental health issues. These jokes are often justified with the reasoning that the jokes are acceptable if coming from someone who has struggled with suicidal ideation. But no matter the intention, it sends the message that suicide is not a serious issue and can contribute to a culture that dismisses and belittles the struggles of those with suicidal thoughts. For someone who is struggling with suicidal thoughts, hearing these phrases can be deeply distressing and may exacerbate their feelings of hopelessness. Recognizing that these phrases have a real and tangible effect on those who hear them is essential in being mindful of the language used when discussing sensitive topics like suicide. Using these phrases in a joking manner may discourage those who are struggling from suicidal thoughts and discourage them from seeking help and talking about their experiences. The further isolation and marginalization of those who are struggling with mental health issues can make it harder for them to access the support and resources they need. So what can you do? First, educate others about the harmful effects of these phrases and work to create a more supportive and inclusive environment for those struggling with mental health issues. You can share this knowledge with others by starting conversations and educating those around you about the importance of mental health and the impact of stigmatizing language. You can encourage others to use language that is sensitive and non-judgmental when discussing mental health and speak up if someone uses stigmatizing language. You can promote positive narratives about mental health and the importance of seeking help and support. Secondly, recognize that mental health is a serious issue that requires compassion, understanding, and support. Be aware that mental health can change over time and requires ongoing care, and acknowledge that mental health is just as important as physical health and should be treated with the same level of attention. Lastly, validate the struggles of those around you so they can get the help they need and deserve. Listen actively and empathetically so people are not alone when they express their struggles. Communicate that they're not alone and that help is available. Together, we can create a world where people can identify when they need help, where their loved ones will understand their struggles, and where we do not lose the devastating amount of people we lose today due to lack of treatment. If you struggle with suicidal ideation, call or text 988 to reach the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. Seeking help is a sign of strength. Thank you.